Okay, this topic will be about the USGA Rules of Golf booklet. Please have your USGA rule booklet in hand, and we'll go ahead and get started. When you look at the front cover of the booklet, you'll see the dates, 2012 to 2015. That's the effective date of the current book. Every 4 years, the USGA and the R&A release rule changes, and a new version of the rule book is printed to cover the 4-year period. So we'll go ahead and move forward. This is where the contents are of the booklet, and we're going to go over this. You'll see the first section. It says forward, page 5, principal changes, page 6, how to use the rule book, a section we'll get a little more in detail into in a minute, on page 9, and then a quick guide to the rules of golf on page 11. And then you're into the main sections of the booklet, which include section 1, etiquette, section 2, definitions, another section we'll spend some time on. Etiquette, of course, was covered very well in the spirit of the game topic that we covered. And then our third section here is the rules of play. And the rules of play include all the 34 rules of the rule booklet broken down into sections. The first section is the game. That's rules 1 through 3. Then you have clubs and balls, players' responsibilities, which is kind of an important section because if you're going to play in tournament golf, you probably want to know your player responsibilities. So about practice, advice, information is strokes taken, that comes into play in match play only. And then you have, we're going to get a little more in detail on advice because that's not only a rule that the players should be concerned about, but also the spectators, because that's our spectator rule as well. Order of play, teeing ground, playing the ball is a whole section, and then putting green, ball moved or deflected. And then when you get to rule 20, this is where it gets interesting. If you start at the top, just the basic lifting and dropping and placing of the ball, the cleaning of the ball, when you can do that. Ball assisting or interfering play, loose impediments, and you can see the list there from rule 20 to 28. So there's 9 rules in total. Then moving on to the end of the rules of play section, you have the last 2 things of other forms of play and administration. And moving on to the back end of the booklet, you have the appendix, and there's 4 sections of that. Appendix 1 is kind of a very important section for the tournament committee. They have a section on local rules and conditions of competition, and this is where we get the verbiage to make up our rules of our local rule sheets, or a rules card in our case. In the North Coast Tour we have a rules card that basically covers all of our local rules and conditions of competition. And then after those appendix sections, you come to probably the most vital section in the rule booklet, and it's called the index. That's on page 182. And we'll be covering the index a little bit more in detail here in a little bit. So that's the Rules of Golf booklet. Now I know that seems pretty overwhelming at this point, but stick with me for a few minutes. We're going to break this down, and we're going to simplify it for you. So we're going to start out by moving to page 9. Okay, now we're on page 9, how to use the rule book. It is understood that not everyone who has a copy of the rule book will read it cover to cover. Most golfers only consult the rule book when they have a rules issue on the course that needs to be resolved. However, to ensure that you have a basic understanding of the rules and that you can play golf in a reasonable manner, it is recommended that you at least read the quick guide to the rules of golf in the etiquette section contained within this publication. In terms of asserting the correct answer to rules issues that arise on the course, use of the rules book's index should help you identify the relevant rule. For example, if a player accidentally moves his ball mark in the process of lifting his ball on the putting green, identify the key words in the question, such as ball mark, lifting ball, and putting green. Look in the index for these headings. The relevant rule, 20-1, is found under the headings of ball mark and lifted ball. So there's a lot of cross-references in this index we're going to be looking into. And the reading of the rule will confirm the correct answer. In addition to identifying keywords and using the index in the rules of golf, the following points will assist you in using the rule book effectively and accurately. Understand the words. The rule book is written in a very precise and deliberate fashion. You should be aware of and understand the following differences in word use. May is optional. Should is a recommendation. Must is an instruction, meaning if you don't carry it out correctly, you could get penalized. A ball, you may substitute another ball. The ball, you must not substitute another ball. Knowing the definitions, there are 50 defined terms. Abnormal ground condition, through the green, and are just a few. And these form the foundation around which the rules of play are written. A good knowledge of the defined terms, which are italicized throughout the book, is very important to the correct application of rules. Facts of the case. To answer any question on the rules, you must consider the facts of the case in some detail. You should identify the form of play, whether you're playing match play or stroke play or some of the other forms of play. Who's involved? Could be the player, his partner, his caddy, or an outside agent. Where did the incident occur? Was it on the teeing ground, in a bunker, water hazard, on the putting green? What actually happened? The player's intentions, always an important part of all rulings. What was he doing? Well, what did he intend to do? The timing of the incident. Has the player now returned a scorecard? Has the competition closed? A lot of factors on timing as well. So refer to the book. As stated above, reference to the rule book index and the relevant rule should provide the answer to the majority of the questions that can arise on the course. If in doubt, play the course as you find it and play the ball as it lies. On returning to the clubhouse, refer the matter to the committee. It may be that reference to the decisions on the rules of golf will assist in resolving any queries that are not entirely clear from the rule book itself. Now we'd like to move on to the definitions on page 22. Okay, now we're on page 22, definitions. The definitions are listed alphabetically, and they're also in the rules themselves. The defined terms here are in italics throughout the booklet. So as we go into the definitions, it's key to learn the definitions on a terminology basis. There's a lot of terms that you hear as slang terms in golf, but these are the actual terms used in the Rules of Golf booklet. So you should learn these terms: abnormal ground condition, addressing the ball, advice, and so forth. So as we go through these, you'll get a better understanding, but this is something you can review on your own a little later. Some of these we're going to touch on a little more in detail, but most of it we're going to skip through just to get down to our what we call the more important exercises that are going to help you understand how to work with this booklet. So we'll just read one. Addressing the ball. A player has addressed the ball when he has grounded his club immediately in front of or immediately behind the ball, whether or not he has taken his stance. This actually was a rule change since 2012, because prior to this, the rules always included addressing the ball was grounding the club and taking your stance. Now it's only the grounding of the club. So a little bit of a change, pretty detailed why it's done. We're not going to get into that. But you look at the next one, advice. Advice is any counsel or suggestion that can influence a player in determining his play, the choice of club, or the method of making a stroke. Information on the rules, distance, or matters of public information such as positions of hazards or the flagstick on the putting green is not advice. So it's key to know what is and what isn't. Mainly, if you have anything that helps someone determine how they're going to play their shot, that's going to be advice. For example, I hit a 7-iron on a par 3 to the green. Fellow competitor asked me, "What club did you hit?" He's just asked for advice, and that is a violation of the rule. If you answer him, then you also are giving advice. So if that situation goes, hey, what clubs did you hit? I hit 7-iron. You got a penalty for the guy asking for advice, and you have a penalty for the guy that gave the advice. So beware. And this also is our spectator policy rule, no advice, and it falls under the same category. As we go through here, ball in play, that's kind of an important one. We're going to stop here for a second. A ball is in play as soon as a player has made a stroke on the teeing ground. It remains in play until it is holed, except when it is lost or out of bounds, lifted, or another ball has been substituted, whether or not substitution is permitted. A ball so substituted becomes the ball in play. Alright, it gets a little more complicated. Let's just stick with the first part of this. A ball is in play as soon as a player has made a stroke on the teeing ground. Alright, it remains in play until holed out. So those are the key things. So if you look at this, you'll see stroke is also in italics. So we really need to know what the definition of a stroke is in order to really know when our ball is in play. So if we go to page 33 and we scroll down to stroke, in my case, we're going to read this. A stroke is the forward movement of the club made with the intention of striking at or moving the ball. But if a player checks his downswing voluntarily before the club head reaches the ball, he has not made a stroke. So there are two big factors in making a stroke. Forward movement of the club is the first one. The second one is intention of striking at the ball. There's that word intention already coming up. It was talked about in the section on how to use the rule booklet. So I hole out on the first hole. I walk to the second hole. This is an example. I tee the ball up, I set my driver down behind the ball, and all of a sudden my driver taps the ball. Have I made a stroke? Well, the answer is no, you haven't made a stroke. You might have had the club moving forward, but you never had intention of hitting the ball. It was accidentally a hit. And the ball was not in play at that time, so there's no penalty, so therefore the ball can be placed back on the tee and re-teed. And it can be re-teed somewhere else too, within the teeing ground. But that gives you an example of why you need to know when a ball is in play. And I know when you learn the rules, this is kind of how you learn the rules. Somebody you're playing with, when that happens, your ball gets accidentally knocked off the tee, they say, oh, go ahead and re-tee it. That's not a penalty. But you didn't know why that wasn't a penalty until now, because you understand the definition of ball in play. Okay, let's move on and look at some of the other wording used. Here's the first one. Most confused word is bunker in golf, because people like the label bunkers as sand traps. And that's confusing to anybody talking about the rules of golf, because we know the word as bunker. So if you want to get into the lingo of golf, try to eliminate using the word trap, sand trap, and start using the word bunker. Burrowing animal is also defined. Caddy, casual water. Just going to go reading through the list here real quick for you. Committee, competitor is a defined term. Actually, the course is defined. Equipment is defined. What is your equipment and what is not your equipment? Kind of a lengthy one there. Flagstick. Oh, here's another terminology that's misused, not only at every level in golf. It's even misused regularly on the telecast for the PGA Tour events. They like to use the term pin. You know, the things you have in bowling alleys and the writing instruments you use to write on a piece of paper. So anyhow, we're not in a bowling alley. We use the term flagstick. For caddy is a term. Forms of play. You can kind of see what we're doing, reading through these just so we get a good understanding of what terms are being used here. And this is pretty important. Here's one I've seen used. Hold. A ball is holed when it is at rest within the circumference of the hole, and all of it is below the level of the lip of the hole. I've played in competition where I've seen a ball that flew into the hole and it was plugged into the lip of the hole. And in this situation that I witnessed, the ball was not below, the top of the ball was still above the ground. So it was not below the level of the lip. So in that case, that ball was not holed. So the player, of course, there was the repair of the damage. The ball had to be placed on the lip of the hole and then tapped in for an extra stroke. Okay, moving on. Lateral water hazards, of course, just give you a few things as we go. Lateral water hazards are usually marked by what color stakes? And that would be red. A line of putt and line of play. They're two different things. When you're on the putting green, you have a line of putt. And it's kind of a sacred ground, the line of putt. There's only certain times you can touch your line of putt. A couple of the easy ones are, removing a loose impediment, repairing a ball mark. We actually had a rules violation last season where a player went down the line of putt to kind of hover putt above his line just to see what he felt like the break might be. However, he put his putter on the ground and touched the line, and that is not one of the protected ways you can touch your line of putt. So he was penalized in that situation. Loose impediments. Let's stop here for a second. Loose impediments are natural objects, including leaves, twigs, branches, and the like, and you can read through them. Now, some of the things are listed as branches and leaves, for example, but provided they are not fixed or growing, or any of these items that are solidly embedded or adhering to the ball. So, for example, if you have something adhering to the ball, you can't remove it, even if it's like a leaf, one of these loose impediments. So that's kind of a key item to remember. Also goes into sand and loose soil are loose impediments on the putting green, but not elsewhere. I've seen it very often where your player will start brushing sand on the fringe of the green because they're close to the green and they know sand's a loose impediment on the putting green, and they forget that they're on the fringe of the green. Maybe, I'm not sure, but or maybe they just don't know the rule. But just remember where sand and loose soil are loose impediments and where they aren't. Here's some interesting ones. Snow and natural ice, other than frost, are either casual water or loose impediments at the option of the player. And then this one is kind of misunderstood. Dew and frost are not loose impediments. So when you have the dew is on the green, you can't brush the green to remove the dew because it's not a loose impediment. So that's kind of a key item to remember. Alright, moving on back with the terms, we got lost ball. Marker. Marker is used in every level of competition. A marker is one who is appointed by the committee to record a competitor's score in stroke play. He may be a fellow competitor, but he's not a referee. So when you get when you show up at one of our tournaments, and most tournaments you play in, you're going to get a scorecard of another competitor to keep their score, and you're going to be that defines you as a marker for that player, and you'll be responsible for his score and making sure his score is correct. So in order to make sure his score is correct, you need to have a good knowledge of the rules and make sure he's following the rules correctly. So that's your responsibility. Okay, more terms. Moved is move or moved. Nearest point of relief. We'll talk about that in some detail in some of the videos that we'll be watching. Observers are defined. Obstructions. Obstructions. An obstruction is anything artificial, including artificial surfaces, sides of roads and paths, and manufactured ice. So obstructions are basically items that are man-made on the golf course. You know, the cart paths, the buildings and structures, the ball washers, the trash cans out there. Those kind of things are all obstructions. Now there are some obstructions that are movable, and then you have obstructions that are immovable. So it's important to know how to deal with each of those situations. And again, not that you need to know exactly right now, but if you do need to know, we're going to be showing you more about that as we get into the examples coming up. Okay, opponent is defined, out of bounds, outside agents, partner, penalty stroke, provisional ball. That's kind of one you need to use a lot in golf. A provisional ball is a ball played under Rule 27.2 for a ball that might be lost outside of a water hazard. Now, not just any lost ball. If you hit it in a water hazard, you cannot hit a provisional ball under the rules when you know it's in the water hazard. If there's a question of it could be lost outside the water hazard, or you don't know it's a water hazard, you may go ahead and play a provisional ball. And the other situation is if you think your ball potentially could be out of bounds, you could play a provisional ball in that case as well. Okay, and another note on provisional ball, it's not here, it's actually in the rule, and we may not be covering it, so let's just make sure we cover it now. Anytime you play a provisional ball, make sure you announce your intention to play the provisional ball. That is in the rule, and it must be done. If you didn't, you just put a ball into play under stroke and distance, and if you find your original, it's not in play anyway, because you pretty much abandoned the ball under the rules of golf. Okay, just make sure to announce it. You can, also a good suggestion in that, and this would be like in the recommendation area under provisional ball, you should have it marked differently than the other one because you need to be able to make sure you can identify it. That's not a rule that you have to follow. It's a suggestion that may cost you in the end if you can't identify your ball. Okay, putting green, referee, rub of the green. Everybody's heard that term before. Let's read that one. A rub of the green occurs when a ball in motion is accidentally deflected or stopped by an outside agency. So it's not what some people call rub of the green. If you get a bad break, that's not rub of the green, even though people go, oh, that's the rub of the green. It's really not. It's got to be deflected or stopped by an outside agency. For example, a mower's out there and you hit the ball, it hits the top of the mower and bounces out of bounds. That's rub of the green. Okay, moving on. See some of these terms. We're in the S's, so we're almost done. Water hazards. Get used to these terms. Wrong ball, wrong putting green. They're defined terms, but the rule book likes to use the word wrong. So in cases of wrong place, wrong ball, wrong putting green, those types of things. Okay, we're already up to the rules of golf. So that was just kind of a skim through the definitions for you. Our next stop here in the rule book is going to be all the way on page 182. If you want to skip to the back, we're going to the index. Okay, we're on 182, the index. This is a powerful section of the Rules of Golf booklet. This is where rules officials and anybody that's trying to find a ruling is going to start. There's no better place in this booklet to start this process. If you go to the table of contents to start this, you're going to be spending a lot extra time trying to get to your answers. Where in here you have the main headings are in bold letters. Then you have all these subheadings, and they're all keywords that help you navigate to these navigate your situation very quickly. Let's take an example here in the first line of abnormal ground condition. So highlight this for you. The ball within moved during search. It's going to take you directly to Rule 12-1D on page 63. So that's a paragraph on page 63 that should have your contain your answer, and you'll be able to make a quick ruling, opposed to just getting to Rule 12 and having to go through 1A, B, C, and D before you finally get to your answer. So this is a great navigational tool. You can also see it again here under interference, another spot where it's taking you directly to a paragraph for your answer. So we have a very powerful tool here in the index. And you know, we're not going to go through all this because we have some exercises, but I do want to point out one major heading, ball. Ball is starts here on 182, and it continues on for several pages actually. We're on 184 now, and we're still in ball. And you can see in ball that there's headings, subheadings, and then additional subheadings. So it kind of breaks itself down like an outline. So here you have one situation. We're going to go ball played, and then it as lied, while moving, while another ball is in motion, after a stroke is made from the putting green. So they're all tied. It ties in a lot of situations, and it's a very, very intensive and purposeful process here in the decisions, or in the index. So we're going to start our exercises. Hopefully you've went to our documents page at Tour School and you were able to download and print the index worksheet. And we're going to take these questions and we're going to work them through how we would do a ruling quickly on the golf course by having the book handy. So here you go. First question. A player's ball comes to rest on the fringe of the green. A fellow competitor playing from a few yards back asks the player to lift his ball because it is interfering with his shot to the green. Can the player clean his ball after marking its position? So interesting question. You can have your a ball that's interfering with play anywhere on the golf course marked by the fellow competitor, whoever's ball it is. But if you do that, can you clean the ball is really what we're looking for. So if you look at the worksheet, we're looking for a few answers down here. The index page, the rules page, the rule number, and the index title are the items that we're looking for in this. So we're going to go back to the index and look for keywords. What are keywords in this situation? We're really cleaning. Clean the ball is what we're looking for. So let's say cleaning, clean. We're looking for ball. So we're in ball here. So let's just shoot back up here. I see something right here. If we mark the line here, cleaning ball, Rule 21 on page 88. We can probably additionally find it in other places in the index, and let's go down through since we're not too far away from the C's. I'm going to see if there's anything under cleaning, and there is. Alright, cleaning ball. So I'm going to mark that, and what, not really on course conditions, but how about on prohibited and permitted, when it's prohibited and permitted on Rule 2188. So it's the same, it navigates you to the exact same spot in the rule booklet. So there's a lot of cross references back here. Knowing these keywords can help you navigate the book. So we're going to move over to cleaning the ball and figure out if we can clean this ball. Alright, and here's where we're going to start, right here on this line. And a ball on the putting green may be cleaned when lifted under Rule 16-1B elsewhere. That's us, we're elsewhere because we're not on the putting green. That means we're through the green, or we could be in a hazard too. A ball may be cleaned when lifted except when it has been lifted for these purposes. A, to determine if it's unfit for play. B, for identification, in which case it may only be cleaned to the extent necessary for identification. Or C is because it is assisting or interfering with play. That's exactly our scenario right there. So you can clean a ball elsewhere when lifted, except under these cases we happen to be one of the three, so you cannot clean that golf ball. And when you pick the ball up, you should make sure you pick it up with 2 fingers, indicating that you know the rule and that you're not trying to clean the ball. If you just pick it up in the palm of your hand and throw it in your pocket, if there's anything adhering to the ball, or if it's that kind of day, you're going to get, you would have a situation where you'd have cleaned the ball. So to clearly do this, do a 2-finger pickup. You can set it down to the side if you want, or you can hold it while the shot's being played, and then you can place the ball back. When you replace the ball back, a lot of people think you need to put the ball back in the same exact position on ground. For example, if you had mud adhering to the ball, and that was where you were going to have to strike the ball, well, you don't have to put the mud back in the exact same spot. The rules do not ask you to do that because it's too precise of a measurement, and who's going to make that measurement? There's no equipment or tools that can make that precise measurement, so you can place the ball back and you can rotate the ball any way you want at that point. So here's the first question. We have the answer and can't clean the ball and how to pick the ball up. So alright, we'll move on to question number 2. Okay, question number 2. A player's marker on the putting green is interfering with a fellow competitor's line of putt. So he moves the mark a putter head length to the side. When it's the player's turn to putt, he fails to replace the marker to its original position and places his ball and putts to the hole. He's left with a 6-inch tap in and then determines that he did not move his mark back to its original position. So, okay, on this situation, keywords that I see are, well, the ball's involved. the ball was actually placed in the wrong place, but it was also played from the wrong place. So in this case, we're looking at, let's look under ball. So we're look up above here, and we have ball. So we're going to go down through ball now and see if we can find anything that's relative to what we have. Here we got played. That's good. And here we go, wrong place. Oh, we got the right one because there's stroke play and match play. Now how do we know if it's stroke play or match play? So we look back at the question. There's some key words in here. Fellow competitor. When you see the word competitor, you know you're playing stroke play. If that word were opponent, you know you were playing match play. So one of the ways to you know, in the testing that we go through as rules officials is they don't give us sometimes the form of play, and we have to dissect it out of the question, and this is how we would do that. So anyway, we found this players played from a wrong place in stroke play. It sends us to Rule 20-7C on page 86. Now, we talked about cross-referencing. Let's see if we can find it in another place in the rule booklet. We're on 183 right now. Let's go over to page 208, and we talked about the word wrong, and here we have wrong place. So we got wrong place, and we got played from, and then here's stroke play again. Exact same spot it's going to direct us to on page 86. So let's shoot over to 86 and see what we have here. What do we have? 7C, right? So, alright, wrong place, 7C, we're there, and this is what we got to go through right here. Okay, so if a competitor makes a stroke, which he did, the stroke was part of that, because if he had just placed his ball and then figured it out, he's able to correct his mistake before he played a shot. So if the competitor makes a stroke from a wrong place, he incurs a penalty of 2 strokes under the applicable rule. He must play out the hole with the ball played from the wrong place without correcting his error, provided he has not committed a serious breach. Well, he has no serious breach here because there's no significant advantage of having the ball, you know, putter head to the side. A serious breach would be if you were to drop on the opposite, you know, the forward side of a water hazard, and you were supposed to drop behind that water hazard. Now you have, you know, some 40-50 yard advantage in a case that we're thinking of, and that would be a serious breach, and then it requires a correction where you'd have to go back and hit to the right spot. So in this case, there's no serious breach, so he should play on. Matter of fact, here's a little tip for you. In wrong ball, in wrong place. When you have a wrong place situation, think of the P in place as play on. Don't go fix it. Just take your penalty and keep playing. And when you're doing a wrong ball situation, remember the B in ball as go back, because you have to fix a wrong ball situation. And just to quickly go over wrong ball, if you were to have a wrong ball and you find that you're playing a wrong ball, you need to go back and fix it. If you fail to do that before teeing off on the next teeing ground, then as soon as you strike a ball on the next teeing ground, you're disqualified from the competition. So remember to go back. Strokes taken with the wrong ball do not count in your score. So that's just to finalize that little tip there. So we've got the answer to our question here, number 2, and we'll move on to question number 3. Okay, question number 3. A player finds out he has 15 clubs in his bag on the 5th hole of play in stroke play competition. Is the player penalized? Well, I think he's got a problem. Let's see what's going on, because the question here is about clubs. We're on what is this, 186, and I found clubs, and down within clubs I'm looking for something having to do with how many you can have. Oh, here's something interesting. Maximum number allowed. That sounds exactly what we're looking for. So that takes us to page 44, and the rule would be 4-4A. So let's shoot over to page 44 and see if we can figure out if we got a problem here. So what did we say? 44. Okay, 4-4A. This is it. Maximum 14 clubs. So we're going to read through all this right here. Okay. A player must not start a stipulated round with more than 14 clubs. he is limited to the clubs thus selected for that round, except that if he started with fewer than 14 clubs, he may add any number, provided that his total does not exceed 14. The addition of clubs or clubs must not unduly delay play, and the player must not add or borrow any clubs selected for play by any other person playing on the course, or by assembling components carried by or for the player during the stipulated round. So 14 clubs is his max at any point during the round. He's exceeded that, and let's go into the penalty here. We actually infracted 4-4A. We look at the question, we know we're under stroke play, so this is where we're going to be interested in reading. It says stroke play, 2 strokes for each hole at which any breach occurred. Maximum penalty per round, 4 strokes. 2 strokes at each of the first 2 holes in which any breach occurred. So if we go back to this player, he's on the 5th hole, so 2 strokes per hole would equal 10 strokes. However, he is protected by the maximum penalty per round of 4 strokes, so that's what he's going to get. And if you're his marker, how you're going to score that on the scorecard, you're going to add 2 strokes to the first hole and 2 strokes to the second hole of play that day. So if he made a 4 on the first hole, he now has a 6. If he made a 5 on the second hole, he now has a 7. So that's our answer to question number 3. Okay, we're going to take a shot at question number 4 now. At the 3rd hole, a player is playing from the teeing ground and his ball falls off the tee as he addresses it. Is there a penalty, and what procedure should he follow? So in this case, we have the ball on the teeing ground. Some of the key words might be teeing ground. You got the ball, falls off the tee. Teeing is involved, tee's involved. So let's move down through ball. We're already at 183 here. This looks like a pretty good idea. What's going on? Falling off the tee. And that gets us to page 61, Rule 11.3. Now I know there's another place back here to find this. Shoot over to page 206, and we'll scroll down to teeing, and actually in this case, tee and teeing. Ball falling off tee, same exact pointer to the exact ruling, page 61. So we're going to go over to 61 and make a decision on this. Okay, on page 61 we find 11.3, ball falling off a tee. If a ball, when not in play, keyword not in play, falls off the tee or is knocked off the tee by the player in addressing it, it may be reteed without penalty. However, if a stroke is made at a ball in these circumstances, whether the ball is moving or not, the stroke counts, but there's no penalty. Well, the second part doesn't apply to our question, but the first part does. We have a ball that's not in play because he's on the 3rd hole playing from the teeing ground. And we're assuming he hasn't made a stroke yet, I guess, but his ball fell off the tee and he's able to re-tee it. So there's no penalty and he's able to re-tee it. That's the answer to question number 4. So we're doing pretty good getting through these rulings, and we'll move on to the next one. Number 5. The player turns in a signed scorecard with a score of 44 in the box for the 9th hole. The 44 was actually his total score for the front 9. His actual score was 3 on the 9th hole. So we're going to find the rule and make the ruling on this one. I found this one in 3 places in the index. We'll start first under hole because we have a wrong score for a hole. So we're under hole, there actually is wrong score. So that's on page 193. And it directs us to page 50. The rule number would be 6-6D. We also are going to find this on 202. On page 202, under scores, we have wrong score. And that gets us to the same spot in the rule book. And also under wrong score, all the way in the back. They really like that word wrong in this book. So here we go. We're going to go to page 50 and see what happens here. So it's 6-1D. We only got to read the paragraph on what's involved here. So the competitor is responsible for the correctness of the score recorded for each hole on his scorecard. If he returns a score for any hole lower than actually taken, he is disqualified. If he returns a score for any hole higher than actually taken, the score as returned stands. So in this case, we need to determine whether the player is disqualified or not. He actually made a 3 on the 9th hole, but signed for a 44. 44 is higher than 3, so that score will stand as the rule says. So in this case, he actually had 41 strokes prior to the 9th hole. With the 44 in the 9th hole, he's got a total score of 85 for the front 9. So the moral of this lesson is you need to make sure that your scores, hole by hole, are correct before you sign and return your scorecard to the committee. Because once it's signed and returned to the committee and you've left the scoring area, your scorecard is now deemed as in, and you cannot correct anything on your scorecard. So it's very important that you go through this process correctly, and we'll be showing you more about this as you come to the scorers table during the competitions. But and this is one of the situations that happens quite often on tour, where players sign for wrong scorecards, and more often than not it's a disqualification. I would say we average 4 or 5 of these a year. There has been situations where we had this exact same thing happen, where somebody put their total in the 9th hole and that was the score they had to take for 9 holes. So that would hurt your scoring average for the season, so be careful on this one. Okay, moving on. Number 6, our final question. A player has hit his ball into a hazard marked by red stakes and adjoining red lines. What are his options? Okay, well, it sounds like we're in a hazard. Luckily the index has the word hazard in it, and we're going to scroll down through hazard. Now hazard also includes bunkers that you see up here. We're looking for water hazards, of course, and I have that marked out for us. Water hazards including lateral water hazards, ball in, relief, and we're looking for options. And it points us to Rule 26.1 on 97. However, remember the quick reference guide that we talked about earlier that we said you should review, or is recommended to review. On page 16 is a great guide for this, and I would actually mark page 16 right here in your book right now, so you know when you're looking for this to go to page 16 rather than 97. So let's take a look at 16. Okay, we're on page 16. This is in that quick reference guide. Water hazards. If your ball is in a water hazard, yellow stakes or lines. Now we need to know about yellow in order to be able to do the red as well, so we're starting here. You may play the ball as it lies, or under penalty of 1 stroke, play a ball from where your last shot was played, or play a ball at any distance behind the water hazard, keeping a straight line between the hole and the point the ball last crossed the margin of the water hazard, and the spot from which the ball is to be dropped. So all those need to line up. We're going to show you that in the diagram in a second. And we'll move on to the next part, which says if your ball is in a lateral water hazard, red stakes or lines, in addition to the options for a ball in a water hazard, now you see how you get the same options that you get with yellow. Now you get 2 more with the lateral. So under penalty of 1 stroke, you may drop a ball within 2 club lengths of and not near the hole, then these 2 points. The point where the ball last crossed the margin of the water hazard, on a point on the opposite margin of the hazard, equal distance to the hole from the point where the ball last crossed the margin of the water hazard. So there's a point on each side of the water hazard. The one is where you last crossed, and the other one is a point equal distance on the opposite margin. So let's look at the example here in the diagram. Okay, the play of this hole was supposed to be on the red line, from the teeing ground on the left to the putting green on the right. But the ball actually went on the line towards the spot where location B is. So you can see, the ball here. You can play that ball if you can get to it and play it. There's no penalty to play out of this hazard. Just remember you can't ground your club in the hazard or touch loose impediments with your hand or club. And then if we're talking about relief on the yellow situation, you can go back to point A, return to where you last hit from, or you can work from the spot you last crossed, which was at C. And the first spot you can start thinking of dropping is behind the hazard. Remember it said behind the hazard? So here's D, and you can drop anywhere on this line. So anywhere on this line is keeping the spot where you last crossed in line with the flagstick and continue behind the hazard as far as you want. any distance you want to go back, you can go back. So when you're doing that, you always want to look for good lies and flat ground. Get the right distance to the hole. You have some options here. So this is when you can use the rules to your advantage. Okay, since we're in a red marked hazard, we get these additional options. At point C, this is the point where you last crossed, you get 2 club links no nearer the hole, and you can see the shape of that zone you can drop in. And on the opposite margin at point E, you also get the 2 club length option, and you can see the zone is a little bit bigger just because of the location of going away from the no near the hole situation in this direction. So those are your 5 options. You can play it no penalty, back to point A, at point C, E, and D. All those options are available. So that should really help you a lot with water hazards. You can always pull out this diagram if you have any questions while you're in play. Now you know, and you have it marked on page 16 in your index, and you can just refer straight to 16 if you'd like. So I bet you did a fine job with our exercise and learned quite a bit about the rule booklet and the index, and hopefully it took a lot of fear away from the book. Now you know how to navigate the book and get things done. So that's got to build a lot of confidence for you on the rules of golf, and it will really help you during play. So in summary, keep your rule book with you in your golf bag at all times, and when in doubt, use it. And use the same principles we just applied to finding keywords within your situation, and find them in the index, and move ahead and make your rulings like we just did. So you're off to a great start, and thanks again for watching.